Daf Lamed Zayin Amid Beis will begin at Daf Lamed Zayin Amid Aleph, 2 lines from the bottom. We learned previously in the Brisa that you can be Yaitse with Matzah Hina. What is Matzah Hina? Matzah Hina is that it's not baked completely, but it's baked enough so that when you break it apart, the strands of the dough do not pull out from it and not stick to it. So meaning that you can break it, it's not fully baked, but you break it and it's a clean break. So Omer Rava says the same halacha applies v'chein lachmei taida. When the korban taida is brought with 40 challahs. These challahs, in order to have the kiddush that it's not kosher and the korban is mekadosh lechem, it has to be baked to the same extent that it has a clean break. So therefore, when you makar the korban, that it has to be that the bread, the lachmei taida, are baked at least to that level that when you break it, the strands do not pull out from it. Pshita, affecting more of Pshita, well, of course, what's the chilek? Hacha lechem ksiv, hacha lechem ksiv. Both by matzah and lachmei taida says lechem. Well, we should therefore apply the same definition of lechem to matzah and lachmei taida. Why should I think it would be any different? More answers mouth, the same way you might think hoylek ksiv v'hikru mimena. It says by the lachmei taida v'hikru mimena, and it says you're makar from it. And it says echad mikol korban, each from one of the korbanos you have 40 lachmei taida. There's 30 of matzah, 3 different minim which are all matzah. 1 is chametz. One from each group of 10 is given to the kain. But it says v'hikra echad mikol korban. It says that you're makar, that you're hikra mimenu. Echad mikol korban, 1 from each of the korbanos of each of the groups. So it says echad. So you might think, well, just like you can't have a broken piece, you can't have matzah hina because this is also considered broken. So echad shelo yitel porous, you can't take a broken loaf. V'hacha keman deprisa dami, and the matzah hina, you might think it's as if it's broken. Kemash malan, then know that it's kosher. Meaning, as far as the definition of lechem, it's the same as matzah, and therefore, as by Pesach we say by matzah it's considered lechem. Here also is kind of lechem, but the chiddush is that it's also considered echad, that it's not considered to be broken. So now coming back to the machlokes Rav Yochanan and Reish Lakish. If you say that if it was in a pan, if it was fried, that it's kosher for matzah, if matzah that's kosher, that matzah that's fried, is it kosher for the mitzvah matzah? Meisvei, they ask kasha to Rav Yochanan from the following. Hami'isa will define this in a moment, but it means that it's scalded. The flour is scalded. Me'isa beishamai paichim, they say it's potter from chalam, ubeisil machayim. And the Beis Hillel say it's chayiv and chal. Achalita, which is also scalded, Beisham mechayv and Beis Hillel paichim, and here it seems to be the opposite. Beisham mechayv, Beis Hillel paichim. Ezel meisa v'zel chalita. What's the definition of meisa and chalita? Ha-meisa kemach shel gabi megulashin. The meisa is where you pour the flour over boiling water, so it's scalded. But you have the boiling water and you pour the flour over it. And chalita mugloshim shal gabi kemach. And chalita is you pour the boiling water over the flour, onto the flour. Rabbi Shmuel, Rabbi Yisrael, Rabbi Shmuel Zev Ptur. He says both of them are potter from chal. And another version of what he said is zelachiyah. They're both chayav. B'chal maimim. Echad zeh ve'echad zeh, they say in both cases, they say ason be'ilfas pot. If it was made in an ilfas, meaning after you scalded the flour, you fried them in a pan, it's potter. It's not considered lechem. It's potter from chal. Betanur, but if after scalding you baked it in an oven, chayiv. Then your chayiv is chayiv b'chal. So now the Gemara is analyzing this brisa. So the Tanna Kama has a version is that there's a difference between meisa and chalita. So the Tanna Kama, what's the chilek? Maishna meisu, maishna chalita. What's the difference if there's meisa and chalita? They're both scalded. So why should we say that Beis Shammai patches one as Mechayiv the other, and Beis Hillel vice versa? More answers, Amr Yeram Shmuel, that's not the pshat. So Amr Yeram Shmuel Yitem Rav Yishu ben Levi, Kemachlekes Bezu, Kach Machlekes Bezu. There is no chilik between Me'is and Chalita. It's just a question of if it's scalded, is it Kensichayv and Chal or Potter? It's the same in both cases. And it's Kamachlekes Bezu, Kach Machlekes Bezu, V'Tavra, and the Bryce has a contradiction. It has a stira. Whoever learned Potter did not learn Chayiv. Whoever learned Chayiv learned Potter. Meaning, one Mandomer says, one Tana says that in case of it scalded, Beis Shammai Potters, and it'll Potter in both. And Beis Hillel is Machayiv in both. And the other Tana learns the opposite. But there's no chilik between Meis and Chalita. There's one version that Beis Shammai Potters both and Beis Hillel is Machayev both, and the other version is that it's the opposite. So therefore, we have as follows: we have the Tanna Kama has that Meis and Chalita are both that you're Chayev in both or both Potter. There's a Machlokes Beis Shammai Beis Hillel. Are you Chayev in both or Potter in both? And Rav Shmuel bar Rav Yossi, Amar Shemoviv, he says, he goes according to the version that says Zezel L'Petur. And V'amele Zezel L'Chayv, and a different version is Zezel L'Chiyuv. Now, we'll see in a moment, then what's Rav Shmuel bar Rav Yossi, what's he saying differently than the Tanna Kama? He's also saying that both are either saying Chayv or Potter. So we'll see shortly. And V'cham say that it makes a difference. There's no difference between the Chalita and the Meisa, and there's no difference between the two of them. But they say the chilik is that if afterwards scalding, it's in a frying pan as Potter, in an oven, then it's Chai. So now, Tanamiyas Chom Moimrim Echadzev Echazeh, so Belfis Potter, Betanu Chai. So it says clearly that in a frying pan you're Potter. So it doesn't show you clearly that in a frying pan it's Potter, and not like Rav Yochanan who says it is considered lechem. So they say that cham mechazeh v'achazeh ketani means chamar mechazeh v'achazeh. Some bilvus Potter betanu chayev tiyuf to Rav Yochanan. It's a kash on Rav Yochanan. You do see clearly over here that the Chum say that in a frying pan you're Potter, or it's not considered lechem, but it's machlokes tanoim. And I go like the following Tana that we'll see in the following brisa. Now Tosfos says, he asks that really you don't have to search for another Tana. You don't have to search for brisa to find another Tana that takes the position of Rav Yochanan, to say Tanoi. L'chayr, it's inherent in the brisa that we just learned that it's a machlokes Tanoi. Because when we learn the brisa, so the Tanna Kama that we're saying, the Tanna Kama is, we're learning, Tanna Kama says that there's a machlokes Beis Shammai Beis Hillel, that what is that both Me'isa and Chalita, either you're Chayiv or you're Potter. So now Rav Shmuel bar Rav Yossi is saying, Mishumaviv, so what's he coming to say? He's saying Zev Zel P'tur, Zev Zel Chiv, meaning that Rav Shmuel bar Rav Yossi is saying the position of Beis Hillel, so he's arguing on the Tanna Kama, according to the version of the Tanna Kama that says that Beis Hillel says that they're both Chayev, he's saying Zev Zel P'tur. No, that's not what Beis Hillel says, they're both Potter. According to the version that it says that the Tanna Kama said Zev Zel P'tur, he's saying no, Beis Hillel says Zev Zel Chiyuv. So that's how he's arguing on the Tanna Kama. But what's he saying different than the Chachamim? The Chachamim say Echadzeh ve'Echadzeh, that if it's a son be'ilfis Potter b'Tanu Chayiv. So what's he saying any different than the Chachamim? Must be that he's arguing with the Chachamim, that the Chachamim are saying that Echadzeh ve'Echadzeh ason be'ilfis, that it's Potter, and then only in a Tanner it's Chayiv. So the Lashon that says that he holds, that he said that Zev L'Zeh L'Chiyuv, meaning he wants to argue and say that no, it's not Potter if it's in a frying pan. You, Chacham, are saying B'chali between a Tanner Chayiv and Ilfus Potter, Zev L'Chiyuv, even in a frying pan, that it's Chayiv. So L'Chayra, you have clearly the Shita Rav Shmuel Rav Yossi, Mishumaviv, who holds that in an Ilfus you are Chayiv. However, nevertheless, since it's a machlokes, there's two versions of what he said, we're searching for a Tana that offers a clear-cut opinion that in a pan in an ilfas you're chayiv. So who's the Tana? The Tana we see from the following brayse. It says, you might think that the chayiv b'chala tamid leimer lachem. It says lechem. It says lechem, so therefore it excludes scalding. Rabbi Yehuda Omer ein lechem ela afa b'tanur. He says no, lechem is only something baked in a tanur. So Rabbi Yehuda hainu Tanakama. Isn't Rabbi Yehuda saying the same thing as the Tanakama? They're both saying that if it's scalded, that it's potter, it's not chayiv. Ela lav myself is benayim. Must be that the chilek is fried. Meaning, Tanakama savar myself is chayav. Tanakama says if it's scalded, it's potter, which means to say that if it's not scalded, it's in a frying pan, it would be chayav. And Rabbi Yehuda, Tanakama savar myself was chayav, and Rabbi Yehuda savar myself is paturim. And the Rabbi Yehuda says no, ein lechem ela afa b'tanur, and therefore even if it's not scalded, frying in a pan in an elfes, you will not be chayiv. Your potter is only in a tanur. So isn't this clear that it's a machlekes tanoim? Of course, look. Maybe I'll tell you no. The kuli alma ma'ase elfes b'tur. Everybody holds that ma'ase elfes is b'tur. That if it was only fried and it was not baked in an oven, it's potter. What's the machlekes here? Here we're talking where it was not scalded, it was originally fried, and then you baked it in a tan. Even if it was only fried in a pan, it was only fried in an ilfos, it would be potter. Everyone agrees it's potter. But maybe the pshat is here, we're talking where after frying, it wasn't scalded, but after frying, it was baked in a tan. The Tanakama Savar, he holds Kim Jechazar Vafa Betanur, since it was ultimately baked in a tanur, Lechem Karin, it's called Lechem Yerchayim V'chala. Rabbi Yehuda Savar, he holds Ein Lechem Ela Afa Betanur Me'ikara. He holds no, then it has to, initially from the inception, it has to be baked in the tanur. If it was fried in a pan, even if afterwards it's baked, it's not chal, it's not chayiv. V'kem Dimikor Lav Betanur Afya, Lav Lechemu. And that's machlekes. Maybe I'll tell you everyone holds that if it was only fried as potter. The machlekes is if it was initially fried and then baked. That's the machlekes. Amar Rava, my time with Rabbi Yehuda. What's the time with Rabbi Yehuda that it says it has to be baked initially in the tanur? It says in the klala, it says that it'll be such Rahman Oslan a situation of anius that in order to save on the fuel, that they'll be so poor, in order to save on the fuel, they have 10 women to bake their bread in tanur at one time. So they can't, they have no means to bake separately. They'll have to bake it at one time in the oven. So it says, Vafu eser noshim lachem b'tanur echad. Lechem offer b'tanur echad kore lechem. What is lechem? That is that which is baked, b'tanur echad. It's baked in a single oven. Meaning there's not multiple bakings. It's baked at one time. It's not fried and then baked. It's baked in an oven at one time initially. But if it's not baked in a single oven, it's not called lechem. It's not called bread. The Sfas Emes explains as follows. He says, the pasuk says, "Va'afu eser nashim." Now it says lachmechem. It doesn't have to say lachmechem. It could say "Va'afu eser nashim b'tanur echad," that you bake. They bake in one tanur. So why does it have to say lachmechem? So that seems to be extra, to convey the idea that they will have to save on the money and the fuel, that they'll have to bake at the same time. It doesn't have to say lechem. It's come to teach you the definition of lechem. Lechem is something that it's baked in one tanur. That it's baked in one tanur, not fried and then baked. It's not, they bake it, it's baked all at the same time. And it's baked in one tanur. In one tanur, all these women bake everything in one tanur. Something that's baked in one tanur is called lechem. Yosef Rabbi Rabbi Yosef Bechari the Rabbi Zera Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Zera Kame Du'ula Omer Le Rabbi Le Rabbi Zera. Rabbi said to Rabbi Zera, Boy Minei Mi'ula. He had the following question: Hidbik mi b'fnim v'rtiach mi b'chutz ma'u. What happens if, what's the din if he put the dough inside the frying pan and then he placed it over the fire and he heated it up over the fire. Amar le Rav Zera said, what's the question over here? What should I ask him? How can I ask him this question? If I do ask him, Amar le, he'll say, tell me, I knew myself. That's exactly what frying is. You're frying, you put something in a pan and you put it over the fire. You fry it over the fire. So Omer le Rav Yosef Rav Zera said to him, Boy Minei Yehulah, ask the following question. Well, let's say instead of putting it over the fire, instead of doing that, he put the flame over the top of the pan, so that normally the fire is underneath. He put the fire on top, so now it's now broiling it from on top instead of from underneath the pan. What can I ask him? That's the way most anim do it. They have to save money on the fuel, and that's the way most of them do it. So that's not a shayla. That zichar is considered the normal way of frying.